Well, hello again. Before we hear Reverend Higa's Hanamatsuri Dharma message, I'd like to sort of briefly reintroduce him, or maybe not so briefly. As I mentioned earlier, Reverend Blayne and I had attended IBS together, and at that time he was a minister with Tokudo ordination, and his outgoing personality and his ability to share the Dharma in such a relatable and easily understandable manner made him a really highly sought after guest speaker, both at BCA temples and for BCA seminars. In fact, at that time, there were some BCA ministers who were plotting, maybe even scheming, ways to steal Reverend Blayne away from the Hawaii Kyodan. So, well, as you can see, Reverend Blayne is joining us from Kona via Zoom because those plans just didn't pan out. I mean, it's not like BCA temples can offer him a signing bonus like Major League Baseball does when they want to attract a standout player. And to steal someone away from an island paradise, you'd have to offer a pretty big signing bonus in my mind. But for now, I suppose, if we can't have him on Team BCA, we should be grateful to have him on Team Nembutsu with us. So for today, I guess we'll just have to settle for having Reverend Blayne pinch hit, by the guest speaker for Hanamatsuri service. Can you folks tell that my mind's on the start of baseball season and the Padres home opener coming up this week? Well, next up at the plate, coming to us all the way from the big island of Hawaii, is Reverend Blayne Higa.
Thank you, Smitty. It's good to see you again, at least virtually. So good morning again, everybody. Thank you for coming together as Sangha to celebrate the birth of the Buddha. Now the story of the Buddha's birth, right, as we know, ends tragically with the death of Siddhartha's mother, Queen Maya, 7 days after the birth of the prince. We are reminded that even the most noble among us are unable to escape the impermanent nature of our existence. Right? April is also, right? But what is April? Tax season, right? So death and taxes, right? Right, so this fundamental truth that we must confront if we, like the Buddha, are to understand the meaning of our human birth. In the Three Treasures, it says, how rare and wondrous it is to have been born into human life, and now I live it. How rare and wondrous it is to be able to listen to the Buddha Dharma, and now I'm able to hear it. If I do not transcend the world of delusion in this life, when will I ever attain spiritual liberation? This reminds us of how precious our lives truly are, and how rare and wonderful our life is. And how remarkable it is for us to encounter such profound teachings that lead us to a life of awakening. The Zen master, Shunryu Suzuki, once said, there are no enlightened people, there is only enlightened activity. This captures for me the true essence of the Dharma and how we should strive to live each moment of this unrepeatable life. The teaching should serve as a guide for us to become true and real human beings who live with wisdom and compassion for the welfare of others. Shakyamuni Buddha is considered the enlightened one or the awakened one, not because he was some magical being, but rather because he was someone who practiced enlightened activity in all that he did. He could have kept the truth he discovered to himself, but instead, he spent his entire life sharing the way out of suffering by humbly and sincerely living his spiritual values and insights. His life was his teaching and was the embodiment of values in action. We often separate, or just too often we separate our spiritual values from everyday life. However, these values should be the foundation from where all of our actions derive from. In Buddhism, we talk a lot about being mindful of our thoughts, words, and deeds. and how they can impact our lives and the lives of others. We recite the golden chain often, but how many of us take time to truly reflect and to live these values on a daily basis? Good thing it says, I will try. If everyone sincerely lived the values of their faith, can you imagine how truly amazing and beautiful our world could be? Might this be a lesson for our troubled world today? At the heart of Shakyamuni Buddha's teachings are the lessons of suffering, impermanence, and interdependence. These truths form the basis for our spiritual worldview and how we should be in the world, how we should act in the world. Each person's suffering is real and unique, and we should cultivate a compassionate heart and extend loving kindness towards all beings. Because we understand the truth of impermanence, we live our lives as if today is the first day and as if it could possibly be our last. If today was your last day on earth, how would you savor and cherish each moment? How would you treat those you love? How would you like to be remembered? Would we live with a sense of urgency and do all we can to make this world just a little bit better? And because we understand the truth of interdependence, we act from the knowledge that we are truly part of a larger whole and must do all we can to support each other. The Buddha teaches us how our lives are a series of causes and conditions that come together and fall apart in an endless cycle of transformation and change. And we suffer because we desperately cling to the illusion that life should be permanent, unchanging, and the way we want it to be. However, we all know that life is impermanent and filled with dissatisfaction. Hasn't the pandemic been a lesson in this fundamental truth of life? We've had to continually adjust to the rapidly changing circumstances and events in our world and in our lives. And through it all, we have discovered how the everyday transitions and challenges of life have never stopped happening. The cycle of life has continued uninterrupted, and we've had to try to manage everything with awareness, with sensitivity, and with grace. While times have been immensely challenging, we've also discovered that what the Buddha taught about birth, old age, sickness, and death are eternal truths that have enabled us to discover our innate resilience. Embracing the groundlessness of our lives has enabled us to bend and to twist without breaking when things keep falling apart. The Buddha's teachings are truly offers us wisdom for living in these challenging and uncertain times. In Shin Buddhism, we rely upon the vow of Amida Buddha as our reason for our awakening. But isn't Amida's vow also our vow, our highest aspiration in life? In the larger Pure Land Sutra, Bodhisattva Dharmakara, his aspiration to nourish and to liberate all sentient beings, is the ultimate example of how we should live our lives for the welfare of others. We live the life of a bodhisattva, or at least we aspire to. We affirm this aspiration often when we chant the words of the Ju Seige. If for countless kalpas to come, I should not become a great benefactor and save all the destitute and afflicted everywhere, may I not attain perfect enlightenment. Our temples, while important spiritual centers, are not the true place of learning and practice. Isn't our true temple or place of learning within each of us? Isn't the living Dharma something that we experience and encounter every single day? We are responsible for learning the Dharma through our experiences and sharing that Dharma by our actions. I'm reminded of the last teaching of Shakyamuni Buddha, in which he said, the true Buddha is not a human body. It is enlightenment. A human body must die, but the wisdom of enlightenment will exist forever in the truth of the Dharma and in the practice of the Dharma. He who sees merely my body does not truly see me. Only he who accepts my teachings truly sees me. After my death, the Dharma shall be your teacher. Follow the Dharma, and you will be true to me. In these challenging times of conflict and war, we should reflect on this limitless life of true equality and freedom that was promised by the Buddha, and strive to walk the path of peace that he shared. In the true spirit of the Bodhisattva ideal, the goal of Shin Buddhism, right, the Nembutsu path, is not simply personal liberation, but a universal awakening of all beings in this world of suffering. In the Hymns of the Pure Land, Shinran writes, those who attain the Pure Land of Peace return to this world of 5 defilements, and like Shakyamuni Buddha, bring endless benefit to all beings. The life of the historical Buddha, of Buddha Shakyamuni, offers a model for living in this world for the sake of others. The Dharma teaches us how to live with awareness, compassion, and grace. This life of continual self-reflection is how we awaken to the dynamic activity of wisdom and compassion always present in our lives. That even in our darkest moments, when we can see no light, light is always present, shining on us and within us, giving us hope. Living with this awareness, we should naturally embody and manifest the virtues of the Buddha in all that we do. Yet, we know that the 3 poisons of greed, hatred, and ignorance continue to influence our lives, causing immense suffering. The ongoing war in Ukraine is just one example of how powerfully destructive our ego can be when left unchecked. In a letter to his followers, Shinran reflects on our capacity for unwholesome actions. He says, human beings are such that, maddened by the passions of greed, we desire to possess. Maddened by the passions of anger, we hate that which should not be hated. Seeking to go against the law of cause and effect, led astray by the passions of ignorance, we do what should not even be thought. Only when illuminated by Amita's light can our unexamined inner life can be revealed and the darkness of the 3 poisons be neutralized. We must endeavor to listen deeply to the calling voice of wisdom and compassion, returning us home to ourselves. This is the working of Namo Amida Butsu, which transforms our ignorance into wisdom, our greed into generosity, and our hatred into love. We need to listen even more deeply in these dark and troubling times. The ritual of celebrating the Buddha's birth is a reenactment of the sacred story in which we adorn the Hanamido with flowers representing Lumbini Garden, and the sweet tea we pour over the statue of the baby Buddha symbolizes the fragrant rain that fell from the sky at the moment of his birth. This is a time for reconnecting, for touching the life of the Buddha. And by doing so, we recommit ourselves to learning and, most importantly, to living the Dharma that he taught. Shakyamuni Buddha and Shinran Shonin understood that life is hard and that the way would be difficult. That is why we have three treasures in Buddhism: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, in which we take refuge in. It is the unity of these three where we discover a complete path, a whole path for our entire lives. In the teacher, we have the one who shows us the way in this life. In the teachings, we have the way of understanding and love. And within community, we have the true place of practice, our lives, and our relationships with each other. We shouldn't just study the Dharma. We should live it. The Buddha taught us that the way of peace, the way of true peace, is not passive, but rather is dynamic activity in our world. Each of us is responsible for cultivating the conditions for spiritual awakening and for living with Shinran's heartfelt wish. May there be peace in the world, and may the Buddha's teaching spread. We should respond to this spiritual call to action by embodying and creating the conditions for both personal and collective peace. Let us rejoice for being able to be together for the first time in so many years, and to be able to receive these life-giving and life-transforming teachings today, over 2,600 years after the birth of the Buddha. The Buddha's birth truly offers us hope for our troubled world. Thank you again for the opportunity to share with you today. Hopefully next time I'll be able to visit with you in person and to visit my friend, Smitty. Again, happy Hanamatsuri to everybody. Please join me in Gassho for a closing reflection. A Brahmin once asked the Buddha, the Blessed One, "Are you a god?" "No, Brahmin," said the Blessed One. "Are you a saint?" "No, Brahmin," said the Blessed One. "Are you a magician?" "No, Brahmin," said the Blessed One. "What are you then?" "I am awake." Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Nammanda Butsu, Nammanda Butsu, Nammanda Butsu, Nammanda Butsu. Mahalo, everybody. Thank you again.